There was a greater plan from Allah. And in this plan, those people whose ship was destroyed, actually their ship was about to be seized by the navy. The king was taking every ship to add to his navy. When they came by their ship, they saw the ship is damaged. They said, no good for the navy. They let it go. They're going to suffer damages. They're going to have to fix it up, but at least they still get to keep their livelihood. They can still earn a living. In the case of the child, only Allah could have known that down the road in the future, this child was going to be a criminal, tyrannical to his parents. And Allah gave that child an outlet to Jannah, and Allah allowed his parents also relief of great calamity that was coming their way. Nobody could have known that except Allah. In the case of this wall, Allah was looking out for 2 orphans in that town that was so mean to them, whose father left a great deal of money behind, and that money was buried under that wall. If that wall tipped over, people would have seen that treasure. They would have, the kind of people they are, we know what kind of people they are, those kids wouldn't have seen a penny of it. That would have been eaten up by somebody else. And Allah wanted that those kids grow up one day and are strong enough to protect their assets, and then they dig up what is theirs. This was Allah's plan. But in all of this, none of this makes any logical sense. I mean, unless you know Allah's plan, you're not going to know the logic behind something terrible that happens. What I'm getting at is sometimes you're going to do good for people and you're not going to get compensated like that wall. Sometimes people are going to do terrible things to you. You haven't done anything to them. Sometimes you've done good for them and they only do horrible things to you or somebody else. You see these things around you. And when this happens, your patience is going to be tested. How can they get away with this? How can they do this to me? Why would they do this? I want to give you one more place in the Quran, which is also in a sense related to the people of Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-Isra. Very interesting language. You know, the Israelites, when they were established and when they finally became an independent nation, eventually Allah Azza wa Jal actually in the history of the Jews, in the history of the Israelites, they were ransacked and invaded by foreign nations multiple times. And Allah mentions 2 major invasions in Surah Al-Isra. But the way He mentions it, understand that the Israelites, the Jewish community of the time, we consider them the Muslims of that time. You have to understand what that means. They were the Muslims of that time. That was the Ummah. And they lived in a town, and then non-Muslims came, non-believers came, and invaded them. فَجَاسُوا خِلَالَ الدِّيَارِ. They broke into every home. You don't have to go further when you describe soldiers breaking inside homes. Then you know what happens next. That doesn't have to be spelled out. Everybody can know. Anybody who understands war knows. When militaries go into civilian towns, all unnamed kinds of atrocities take place. But that army that came in, you know what Allah called them? He says, بَعَثْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ عِبَادًا لَنَا أُولِي بَأْسٍ شَدِيدٍ. We appointed over you, meaning we sent to invade over you, servants of ours. The strangest phrase. Those people were disbelievers, enemies of Allah, pagans, attacking Muslims, and what did Allah call them? His servants. Sometimes people that do terrible, terrible things, they don't even know that they're serving a larger plan from Allah. They don't even know it. They don't even know that even in their rebellion against Allah, they are actually at Allah's service. They don't even know. The believers might not understand why this is happening to them. They don't see the future script. They don't have that curtain lifted from Allah, like in the case of the teacher of Musa, who said, look, this is going to test your patience because you don't know what's behind the scenes. All you see is what's happening in front of you. You don't know what's going on, in the background. This is alimul ghaybi wa shahada. Allah knows the unseen and the seen. We only get to see what's in front. And when we see what's in front, we go crazy. We lose patience. We say, how can they do this? How did Allah let this happen? You know that those parents who lost their child are not going to say, oh yeah, I guess he was going to get older and be a big pain. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, how did Allah let this happen? Why did my child have to die? And those same parents, if that child lived 20 years later, I wish you died when you were young. The kind of pain you've caused us. Those same parents will say those words. But Allah knew. They don't know. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows and you don't know. Allah has knowledge and you don't have knowledge. This is the kind of lesson that Musa alayhi salam could not just have been told. He had to experience it. Why? Because you can read about patience. You can learn about it. You can listen to a khutbah about it. But if you're experiencing something, you're experiencing a kind of situation where you cannot understand why this is happening to you. Why is this happening to me? And then still know, لا تحسبوه شرا لكم بَلْ هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Don't think this is a bad thing for you. There's good in this for you. There's good in it for you. If you can internalize that, then you've learned one of the most important lessons in the Quran. One of those lessons that could not have been learned easily even by the likes of Musa alayhi salam. And if it's not easy for you and me to internalize that lesson right away, that's okay. It wasn't even easy for Musa alayhi salam. We're not being expected to turn into angels. We're not being expected to not be frustrated, to not be angry, to not lose patience. That's not the expectation from Allah. As a matter of fact, even someone of that status, of Musa alayhi salam, from ulul azmi min ar-rusul, if he can multiple times be told, look, you're losing your patience, told you you're not going to be able to handle it, then who are we? We are going to go through those circumstances. But this story and this guidance is going to remind us that we have to take a step back sometimes and just look at Allah's plan and say, I submit to it. There is something good in it, in this life and in the next. And you know what? I'm going to accept that. And this is the lesson that Musa alayhi salam had to be given. We are not going to have someone like, Musa's teacher who will walk around with us, and when something bad happens, he'll be like, by the way, I know you're frustrated, but you know the real thing, you lost your job right now and you're really upset, but actually a much better job is coming and you would never have even applied for it if this didn't happen, and you're going to move to the town you always wanted to move to, but that's all planned out for you, but I just didn't want to tell you that, so right now I know you're pretty depressed because you don't have any savings, you don't have money to pay the rent and the electricity bill, and everything's falling apart, but just wanted to let you know there's something in the source code you didn't understand. That's not going to happen with us. That's not going to happen. That's only with that messenger and that lesson that he had to learn. And through that we know that there's always a plan. Because of this story, we know there's always a plan. And the plan of Allah is always meant to be something good. You know that knowledge that this man had, or this individual had, I'd say, to be careful. How did Allah describe his knowledge? He says, آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِّنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. He says about this individual, Allah gave him a mercy that comes especially from us. And then secondarily, he says, we gave him a knowledge that comes especially from us. In other words, that knowledge that he has, before it is even knowledge, it is a mercy. Before it's even knowledge, it is a mercy from Allah. That was important to mention because everything he did didn't look like mercy. It didn't look like mercy. Not from the naked eye, not from the eyes of the seen, but from the eyes of the unseen, there's mercy in that too. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us eyes of Iman and really a heart that can withstand difficulty, withstand hardship, whatever hardship you're going through in your life, whatever circumstances that are weighing down on you. And may Allah Azza wa Jal give you the faith to know there's something good behind this that is on the horizon. You just have to hold on to your faith. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم.